Nah, bro, we're not about to do this. Come on. Are you kidding me? The Bruins lose out in probably the biggest choke we have ever seen in the NHL's regular season to playoff transition, and now we're talking about trading this guy? Come on, bro. Lego, you can't be going out there making videos like this. The article doesn't even say that. Read the title of the article you're going to be looking at, and you'll find out that you're wrong, Lego. And okay, cool, I get it, there's not really an alignment between the idea we're talking about in this video and the title of the article we're reading, but there is a link as you go further down in the piece, and this is kind of why we're making this video. We're talking about the Bruins, we're talking about a goaltender on this team. Linus Ullmark. Long story short, he was a fantastic goaltender this season, and just going over the numbers kind of indicates how dominant he was in 22-23. 49 games played. 40 wins! This guy won 40 of the 49 games that he had played in. Do the math on that. What's the winning percentage? 40 divided by 49. He had a winning percentage of 81%. That's like a B+ right there in high school. And normally, NHL goalies don't get B+ in the NHL when it comes to their winning percentage. In this season, Ullmark had a .189 goals against average, which is phenomenal, and a .938 save percentage, which is also phenomenal. Now, the thing is here, Ullmark had 6 games played in the postseason. He didn't play Game 7, but in the 6-game sample he did have, he was a .334 GAA goalie with an 8.96 save percentage, which is a huge drop-off from what he had accomplished in the regular season. Now, there's a lot of speculation, a lot of people saying, hey, there's no way Ullmark was fully healthy throughout this playoff series. Like, the guy just wasn't moving right, he wasn't getting up right. The way that he was able to dominate the NHL in the regular season, you're not seeing that sort of copy-paste performance here. He's just sort of a lot less mobile. And so, after playing him in a few games where the Panthers ended up winning, you had yourselves the Game 7 decision. Jeremy Swayman comes in here, and to be fair, Swayman has been really good too. I mean, the Jennings is shared by 2 goalies this year, and it is both of them, Ullmark and Swayman, so they both get their names on the award. Swayman has been a very good backup, and ultimately, when it comes to this being the case, you would expect, okay, he's good enough to carry the Bruins past Florida in Game 7. He is good enough to win the game. But you have yourselves late goals against, and then the overtime winner, and Florida is off to play against Toronto, where they actually have a 1-0 lead. So, good for them. But for the Bruins, this is a series where the goaltending didn't necessarily lose them the series, I would say, but it was somewhat of a factor that was in there. If Linus Ullmark is injured, it would make a lot of sense. If he wasn't injured and that's just him playing at his full health, then okay, that's a pretty big drop-off. And with this all in mind, I wanted to go over onto Boston Hockey now because there's an article published by Jimmy Murphy from yesterday saying that there's a source that says teams called the Bruins on Ullmark last summer. Now, obviously, last summer is last summer. It's a year ago. We don't care about this stuff for now. But the source here, which is a former NHL executive, talks about how the Bruins entertained trade talks for Ullmark last offseason. But they ultimately decided to keep the goalie they signed to a 4-year, $20 million deal back in the 2021 offseason. Here's the quote. Teams called on Ullmark last summer, and I can tell you that they at least listened to trade offers on Ullmark because the team I was working for then was one of the teams calling on him. The source told Boston Hockey Now on Tuesday. We figured, why not try after he had a shaky playoff series and they had Swayman on the rise with his contract up this offseason. Then here's the kicker. Ullmark is at a doable cap hit for most teams. I could see him getting moved this offseason. And so ultimately, with the idea of Jeremy Swayman being up there, and with Ullmark being at a pretty reasonable cap hit, this source is saying, hey, it's not really all that surprising of an idea to think that Ullmark would be traded this offseason after having a Vezina-caliber year and dominating the NHL. The article then writes that the Bruins are about to enter salary cap hell and will more than likely need to create some cap space before the 23-24 regular season begins. In addition to Swayman, forwards Trent Frederick and Jakub Loko are also RFAs, and then you have the other guys, Bergeron, Krejci, Foligno, Nosek, Hathaway, Bertuzzi, and Wagner, all set to becoming UFAs, as are Clifton and Orlov. There also is a really good idea brought up about Ullmark and last season's playoff performance against the Carolina Hurricanes. The source says in his initial quote that because of the shaky playoff series, maybe Ullmark could get traded. And this article goes out there and says what's ironic about that quote is that he said one of the reasons his former team inquired about Ullmark was that they figured the Bruins may be willing to part with him after the goalie was shaky in the 7-game first-round loss to the Hurricanes. Well, shaky might be an understatement to describe Ullmark's performance in the recent first-round 7-game series loss to the Panthers. The source goes out there and says this, it all depends if the injury can be corrected with surgery, I would think. If his health isn't an issue, I don't think teams are going to let a playoff performance completely rule him out as a goalie option. Also, he is the likely reigning Vezina winner, so he will have value. If I'm the Bruins, I definitely explore it, and don't forget, they've got a kid in Providence coming too. And yeah, the Providence kid, Brandon Bussi, he's got a great name. Oh my goodness. Stop by Bussi. Ay, that's a great comment to make. But either way, if you're a Boston Bruins fan, what are your opinions about this? I already gave you my 10 cents. My 2 cents is free. So, what are your opinions? Do you think this actually has some bearing, this idea that even though Ullmark was a franchise-caliber goaltender this season, the guy's shaky playoff series and contract situation with the team will make things difficult to proceed long-term with him? Do you rather go with a duo of Swayman, who was pretty good himself this season, and Brandon Bussi? Now, if we go over to them, let's take a look at Swayman and his numbers this season. Jeremy Swayman in 22-23 had a total of 37 games played. He had 24 wins, so also a really good winning percentage there. 227 goals against, so that's not as good as Ullmark, but a .920 save percentage. Now, sure, that still is below what Ullmark accomplished this past season, but a .920 save percentage is nothing to scoff at in the slightest. You then have yourselves Brandon Bussi, who is in the AHL system right here. His numbers were pretty good with Providence as well. In 32 games played, the guy had a 2.40 goals against and a .924 save percentage. He went 22-5-4. So even these AHL goalies are getting crazy high winning percentage. Let's do the math on that. 22 divided by 32. Yeah, that's a 69% winning percentage. Very nice, if you asked me. But are you in a position to really go hard with Swayman and Bussi? Do you want these guys to be the inevitable starter duo in Boston? If you think about things last year, everybody was sort of projecting Swayman to being that guy anyway. We didn't really expect Linus Ullmark to have this crazy good season in 22-23 if you're asking the people watching hockey a year ago. So, because things change quickly, is this season's worth of play enough to say, okay, no, we're not trading Ullmark. There's no reason to trade Ullmark. We can sort out the salary cap with other ways, trade other players, get somebody else off the team, but not Ullmark. That guy and his $5 million AAV is a steal if he's able to win all these awards, and having him and Swayman as the 1A, 1B is going to make things much easier for the rest of the team. You gotta remember, the Florida Panthers scored a whole bunch of goals in that Game 7, and a bunch of those weren't really Swayman's fault. They were like, just kind of chances on the rush. There were breakaways, 2-on-1s in there, and then screenshots. It wasn't really the goaltenders losing out the game for their teams, you know? So ultimately, when it comes to this Bruins team, where do you go from here? What does your goaltending situation look like? What are your thoughts on Swayman starting over Ullmark in Game 7? What are your thoughts on Ullmark's performance in the first round? And do you see Ullmark actually being on the trade block in any capacity heading into 23-24? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.